Okay, welcome to episode 13 of Zwift Coaching Podcast. I'm Matt Rowe, here as usual with Coach Andy. All good, mate?
Hi, mate. How you doing? Nice to be here again.
Top man. And of course, Kev Poulton. How you doing, Kev?
Yeah, good, thanks, Matt. And how you going, Greg?
Yeah, good, mate. Good.
Good stuff, good stuff. So in podcast 11, we spoke with Matt Heyman and Luke Rowe about the upcoming Tour de France. And today we have a catch up with Matt and Luke from a week to go in the Tour with some cool insight from the Tour de France. So first up, I spoke with my brother and Team Sky road captain at the Tour de France, Luke Rowe, and this was done on the evening after stage 15 while he was on the massage table, hence the slightly muffled audio. But here's my chat. All right, Luke, thanks for joining us again mid-tour, just after stage 15. How was today's stage?
Today was fairly straightforward. I think the hardest bit of the stage is, for us today, was actually the start, controlling the breakaway and making sure no GC guy, no big threat was there, which the team did superbly. And then it was just a case of riding throughout the day. And then a little bit of excitement on the final climb with Dan Martin attacking, but yeah, it was all in hand. So another solid day, 180k, so pretty long as well, but pretty straightforward.
Yeah, absolutely. And also the break today had a lot of riders in. I think it was 29 riders. Was that nervous at any point? Or obviously there's no GC contenders in there, but still a big group, right?
Yeah, it's always today and yesterday. Yesterday I think I was 35, and just a couple of guys, myself and Gianni, had to control that yesterday. So yeah, I mean it's pretty tough when there's a big breakaway, but at the same time you're just never going to be able to control it where there's 6-8 guys. It's just not going to happen. There's 120 riders who want to go in the peloton. There's 120 riders who want to go in the breakaway.
Yeah.
And if you just always try and keep that to 6-8 guys, they'll attack all the way to the finish line. So as long as there's no GC guy there, you're kind of happy with that. And also what you find a lot of the time, say 12 riders go, or 35 like yesterday, 12 riders will go faster than the 35, just because there's good cohesion and everyone will ride through. Whereas when you get 35, you always get people sitting on the back. So I think when you see it on TV, it's like, wow, there's 35 guys, but they never actually work that well. And actually a smaller break will go faster, which means we have to ride harder. So yeah, you always got to think about that.
Yeah, I always say to people, if you're in a break that's looking good, just do as much work as the person doing the least. Just trying to save yourself, right? So if you've got 35 guys in that break, all trying to just save a bit of energy, then there shouldn't be too much momentum, as you said.
Yeah, exactly. They've all got that mentality. They know as soon as they go in that breakaway, this is the break of the day. You kind of know it's going to stay till the end. The stage was up for grabs, so you're trying to save your pennies. The only danger when a break of that size go is when you have maybe 4 or 5 guys from the same team, and if there's 2 teams like that, you potentially got 10 guys in there from 2 teams, and then they work together, and then if they start riding, then it can be really tough. But I mean, we're here with a strong team, obviously, so as long as there's no GC guys, like you've seen yesterday and today, I think yesterday arrived in 20 minutes, today was 13, we're prepared to give that time away.
Yeah. And obviously your job as road captain, is that your job, or are they calling it in the car, is what breaks to let go and what breaks to bring back?
Essentially, it's just there's kind of 13 guys at the moment within 9 minutes, and it's a big course next to each and every one of them. Apart from that, it's okay. We've seen a few days ago, Kreuzberg went into break actually on our Duez. That was actually a mistake on our behalf.
Right.
Didn't want him to get into break, but on next break of 30 goes, we missed him. So that led to a hard day. But normally if 80 guys go in the breakaway, 80 guys go in the breakaway. As long as there's none of them 13. Yeah. I think there's a bit of a role to play in the start there, and especially on the flatter starts when it goes uphill. You won't see so much of me, but certainly on the flatter when the rolling starts, it's a big part of my job to be there and make sure that right break is going. Yeah, good man. It's funny, that's got me thinking now. I wonder what the biggest breakaway ever to get away in the Tour is. I'm sure it's not 80 riders, but I'll have a look. Well, we had 1 year where we started out of Andorra. What year was it? 2015 or 16. There's breakaway 58 riders going, and we had the jersey, and Nico Portal was on the radio, and I remember actually saying, he's like, okay, guys, break 58 riders, all good, perfect job, really, really good job, guys. And you're like,
really? Yeah.
You know, you just see this peloton riding up the road, you know, it's quite daunting.
Yeah.
But yeah, actually, after that, Valverde and Contador attacked, and it all come back together. But yeah, we were happy for that break to go. That was no problem.
Yeah, nice. So, as I mentioned at the start, this is stage 15, which means rest day tomorrow. What do you do on the first rest day, and what are your plans for tomorrow?
So for tomorrow, we have a lie-in. So usually we have a set time for breakfast and stuff. So there's none of that. Just lie in, sleep as long as you can. There's a press conference at 10:30, which I won't be a part of. It's just for the big dogs. So a bit more time in bed for me. And then we'll roll out quite late, actually. I think 11:30 we'll roll out on the bike tomorrow. So a nice relaxed morning. And we'll do an hour and a half on the bike. 50k. Last rest day we included a nice little climb, so everyone had an opportunity to do an effort, just to kind of not to completely switch off, you know. It's a fine balance. You want to rest and recover, but you don't want to let your body just completely switch off, and especially with the next day being another tough mountain day. Yeah. There'll be a 10-minute effort, just kind of get a good sweat and get in a nice rhythm on the climb. Then after that, massage and literally rest is best. Feet up as much as you can, and keep your head down.
Lovely.
Watching Prison Break.
Prison Break. That's my next question. What are you going to be watching? Prison Break, eh? Nice.
Yeah, I'm into Prison Break at the moment. I think I'm about 10 years behind the trend. Everyone else seems to have seen it 10 years ago. But Prison Break at the moment.
Well, when you finish that, maybe check out Breaking Bad if you haven't seen that already. That was a good one.
Oh, I've seen that already.
You've seen it? Oh, good man. Good man.
Great.
A day in the life of a Tour de France stage. What's that look like?
Okay. So we have a daily plan through every evening, and that kind of says all the details, what time you have to be where. Wake up, whatever time it says. You can go straight to see the doctor, have a health check. So just telling your weight, test your urine just to check you're hydrated, and just checks everything okay. Good night's sleep or any issues, you just report to him, so they kind of know straight away if anyone's particularly fatigued, and they can kind of build that into the day's plan. Then we go to breakfast. So we're lucky enough to have the kitchen truck here, so we've got a chef on there and some kind of dining area on there. Then straight on the bus, off we go, and transfers vary. Like this morning was probably one of the longest. We had a 2-hour transfer before the stage, but then it can be as little as 2 kilometres. So that varies, but this morning it was 2 hours. As soon as we arrive, meeting, pan out who's going to do what on that day and what the parkour looks like, weather, wind, etc. Sign on. Wout will be DJ. He'll play some horrific music for a bit. Get to the start lines and off you go. Stage finishes, back on the bus again. Transfer, that can vary. Back to the hotel, and each swan year has 2 people who are massage. So, for example, my swan year is Jacek. He's a Polish guy, and I've been with him for quite a long time, and he's massaging myself on Wout Powell's. So you need to be first on the massage table or second, and we kind of alternate. Dinner, Prison Break, and bed.
Mega. Sounds right, that. With obviously a lot of hard work in the middle.
Yeah.
And one of the stages that I presume was maybe the hardest, or one of the hardest, is going to be Alpe d'Huez. How was that stage in particular? I mean, obviously great spectacle on TV for the fans, and great day for Sky. Personally for you, how was it?
It was actually quite a good day for me. I went after 25k, went up Col de Madeleine, and the race reduced bits. That's where Stephen Kreuzer went in the break. And there was 20. What was it? There was 29. That was climb was 25k, followed by Croix de Fer. I probably said that wrong, but something like that. That was 29k.
You said it is as good as you can for a Welshman. I mean, that's a good thing. Yeah,
I'll take that.
Fleur.
I'll take that. Yeah. Croix de Fer, but so it was a hard all day, So despite obviously finishing a brutal climb off the road, it was just relentless day all day. So. kind of rode up Madeline, were the next climb, and ended up spat towards the bottom of Croix de Fer. But then it was tough, just to make that time limit. And you've seen quite a few guys go out that day. Quite a few guys went out the day before, and that was the third day of a 3-day block in the Alps. It was a brutal day, and riding above Breakaways in that group, it was you could tell everyone was on their knees. It was a pretty savage day.
Yeah, and then do you think you went a bit quicker on Zwift or in real life on the Alpe d'Huez stage?
I reckon I probably went quicker on Zwift. I crept up there. Luckily, by the time we got to that point, we knew we had plenty of time in the bank.
Yeah.
We were quite hard on the previous climb and through the valley. We, in the back groups where you're making time, you got 20, 30 guys, whoever, and everyone's rolling through and you just fly along,
Yeah.
So luckily we could cruise up there and just embrace it all. I think definitely on Zwift I probably went quite a lot faster than in real life.
Lovely. And what's your take on the virtual Zwift, Zwift climb of Alpe d'Huez, as opposed to the real thing? How comparable are they in your mind?
I mean, you can never replicate going up Alpe d'Huez because you're at one with your bike, you're outside. But in terms of the climb and physically how hard it feels, I'd say it's pretty comparable. Obviously ridden Alpe d'Huez a number of times, ridden on Zwift Alpe d'Huez numerous times, and it's pretty comparable in terms of just out and out physical effort. So it's pretty impressive.
Yeah, good man. Just to talk about a little picture I seen, Sky put up, and it's a photo of G at the dinner table. I think you guys were all sat down having your dinner, and G was there. Obviously you guys have all, I presume, shower change in your casual clothes and having dinner, and G was there in his cycling kit with the yellow jersey on. I presume just come back from all his press stuff. Just give us an idea of all that added stress and pressure and all the stuff you have to do when you're in the position of holding the yellow jersey.
Well, it varies. It's easily an hour, probably an hour and a half later that he arrives at the hotel after us. Say an hour. So, straight away you got to go to the presentation. Then you have dope control. Then you have media, and that just gobbles up your time. And essentially gobbles up your recovery. So, while it's great and it's a privileged position, of course, and every rider would jump at it to be in the yellow jersey. During the course of a Grand Tour, you think, you're getting an hour recovery taken off you every day. Not only that, it's, you're faffing around, aren't you? It's a lot of stuff to do. And it's all part of the procedure. I think most guys who, it's the same with any team. It's not just with us. It's the same with any team, whoever's wearing the jersey. There's a lot of things to do and questions to be answered, and you got the dope control and stuff like that. So it all takes time. But, certainly over the course of a Grand Tour, it really adds up and eats into your recovery. Yeah,
so all those extra hours that G's got doing his press conferences. Obviously, Dumoulin's there watching Prison Break for an extra hour.
I was about to say the same thing. Yeah. He's messing around answering questions. And,
just feet
I'm
up.
seeing how a bunch of guys get out of jail.
Yeah, top man. Well, Luke, thanks. Good to chat, pal. And good luck for the rest of the tour. Hope you guys hold the jersey to Paris.
Cheers, bro. See you soon. Thank you.
Nice one, buddy. There you go. So there's my little chat with Luke, and the one thing that I loved hearing about was him talking about controlling the breakaway. So he said on stage 15 that day that we recorded, there was a big break got away, a group of 35 guys, and you think 35 guys, that's a big old group. And there's obviously a danger that they could really work together well and get away. But I guess it just goes to show the power and the ability of 7 or 8 like-minded guys. How quickly they can close a gap down, and how quickly they can travel as a group. And I guess, Greg, you've been at the receiving end of that and the giving end of that.
Yeah, there's actually a really good example with 2010 Giro when. I think a big group of 30 went away early on as well, and there was this sort of almost like this match between these teams who were supposed to control the pink jersey and wouldn't actually initially take up the chase. So this is when Richie Porte actually got his first pink jersey in the Giro d'Italia, because no one would actually take control. Whereas with Team Sky, they're like-minded, like you said. They've got one goal at hand. There's a lot of communication that goes on. There's a lot of keeping an eye on the numbers, listening to race radio, making absolutely sure that, no one dangerous is going up the road. But yeah, it's amazing what 8 guys riding for one goal can do. Whereas if there's any hesitation, any team that doesn't want to take responsibility and they're all fighting over who should take responsibility, the break goes up the road. I mean, Richie Port ended up taking 20 minutes or something like that and nearly won the Giro from it.
Yeah.
So I was just going to say there, Matt, for me, listening to Luke's interview there, I thought was reflecting on the training he spoke about before it. And he talked about doing those long 30-minute, and I think he said even 90-minute efforts in training, and you can see now why he has to do that, because the amount of time he spent on the front has been it's been huge.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, every time I turn the TV on, I've got my brother's face right in front of me. I'm getting a bit sick of it, to be honest.
I bet you half the peloton's getting sick of it too, mate. He's riding that well.
Yeah. yeah. It's been pretty cool actually. What about all the aggro that's been given out there? I'm not keen on that. I mean, every stage to get to the finish, watching the Team Skyboards come in, there's booing and all sorts. I mean, not ideal for the boys riding the tour, but I do think it kind of brings them together. As I know in the bus before they start, there's something that Luke said. They're all because of the stick they're getting from the fans. And it's definitely bringing them together and helping with that sense of unity, because they're all in it together. I think every time they get off the bus, it's like going to war. Obviously the tour's hard enough without all the aggro, but something they could do without, I'm sure.
Yeah, I don't like seeing it, that's for sure. It's but I mean, there's just too many unanswered questions regarding the Froome incident, I think, and that's what the general public doesn't like. And I read a comment from the UCI president. It's like, okay, we're in France, but he doesn't go around checking the passport of everybody, so it's not necessarily all the Frenchies. It could be who's there booing or whatever. It's just a shame that it's taken out on, because for a fact that the guys on Sky are great guys, clean riders, work hard, and unfortunately comes a part of the territory wearing that Sky jersey, unfortunately.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but I also saw someone liken it to soccer or any sport played in a stadium. Fans in the seats do boo and do cheer. So I guess this is our theatre is out in the road. So is it any different to any other sport?
I just don't like the fact that they're so close and can actually touch them, push them, knock people off. I mean, Vincenzo Nibali, he was a victim of it, and I think they, by the sounds of it, they were having a crack at Froome. I don't know. It's just, from what we can see on TV, we weren't there, obviously, but it's you do have to actually try, respect the riders when they're racing flat stick after 4 or 5 hours up Alpe d'Huez. No one's in a good mood. No one's fresh. It's just there has to be a little bit of respect.
Yeah, that's my take as well. I mean, I think it's stage 17, towards the top when Gowan attacked. There's a photo seen on Twitter of a fan leaning over the barrier and grabbing his arm, and Gowan done a massive wobble. He wasn't actually captured on TV, but there's pictures on social media. And you're thinking, it's just the access and how close these riders, the fans can get to the riders that scares me. But you know what? That's one side of the coin. That's a negative thing, but the other side of the coin is what makes the sport fantastic. It's so open to millions of people to see it live on the side of the roadside. So one of those things. But yeah, and on a slightly more positive note, I mean, looking at rest days, I guess for some riders, when these rest days come, they're well received. And Luke spoke about having a bit of a lie-in, 90 minutes on the bike, maybe a 10-minute effort and a massage. I mean, Kev, from Matt Hayman's point of view, is he doing something similar? And Greg, in your experience, what do those rest days look like for you boys?
Yeah, well, for Matt, it really is just a case of keeping momentum going, and that is getting up at the same time of the day, eating at the same time, and then going out and exercising. And Matt just really likes to work up a sweat and do a bit of an effort. I guess in terms of the science behind it, there is some science in terms of keeping metabolism going and energy systems and so on. But I think more of it is just the mental side of it, where it's just a routine. You want to keep the routine going. Whereas if you have that day where you don't ride the bike at all, you feel quite stale and lethargic on the bike the next day.
Absolutely. And myself personally speaking, it's a really dangerous day actually. If you shut down, your body shuts down. you want to have a lie in. You want to just, maybe I'll just go for half an hour. But, if you're fighting an infection or something like that, that's the day you will get sick. It's because your body just lets go, your immune system lets go, and that can be almost the end of your tour. So I was the same. I would try and keep to my routine. I would overdress actually, and because the ride would typically be shorter, but I would try and drink a lot and sweat a lot, and then it's actually nice because there's no mental pressure. You can actually switch off your brain, and I think that's one of the nicest things.
Yeah, absolutely. What about coffee on the bike? Because again, one side of the coin saying just get out, do your ride, get back, and start recovering, have your massage, chill out in bed. But coffee stop. I know Luke on the first rest day went out had a coffee and switched off a bit. What did you used to do, Greg?
Yeah, I think it really does depend on what sort of condition you're in, mate. I mean, if you're a bit buckled and the only thing you're thinking about is bed, and then it's quite often the team would split in half. There'd be guys like, yeah, let's go get a coffee. They don't want to hang around the hotel all day, and then there'd be other guys who be like, nah, man, I'm going home. I want massage, I want food, and I want a nap.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
I think what's been interesting this year is the amount of guys that are riding the trainer on the rest day now and are riding Zwift, and the reason why they're doing it is because they get a controlled environment, they can work up a sweat a lot easier, and the actual ride is more efficient. And instead of going out and there might be climbs nearby and they don't want to ride a climb and have all that high crank torque and power output, they can just jump on the trainer and have a 45-minute spin, and that's as good enough for a recovery as you can get.
That's a great point. So rather than spending, say, 2 hours getting your ride done, 90 minutes riding and half an hour at the coffee stop, 45 minutes, you showered, changed, massaged, you're back in bed, resting. So yeah, plenty of benefits for that. Good stuff. All right. Well, I guess moving on to Kev, your chat with Matt Heyman. Here's Kev's chat with Matt.
On the line, we have Matt Heyman. Matt is currently at the Tour de France on the second rest day. Matt, how's the tour going for you so far?
Between the last rest day, which came off the back of Paris-Roubaix stage, and this rest day, we've done quite a few climbs. The first 3-day block was really intense, and finishing on Alpe d'Huez the third day was a tough stage. No breakaway went at the start, and I was already in a group on the Col de Madeleine, which was the first of 3 large climbs, and that was a big 3 days. So we really went from the flat racing, the crosswinds, and nervousness of the first 9 days to now we've just had a week of mountains. So it's been a big change. A lot of tired legs in the bunch, a lot less nervous, and a group of us who are often in the gruppetto are getting to know each other a bit.
We spoke about on the last podcast that the focus for you was the first 9 days of racing, and that all played out well for you and the team?
Yeah, look, that's what I came here for, and it does leave a little bit now there's not a lot of options left for me, and you see now that the opportunists have been going up the road every day, and they're almost the same guys, they're really strong guys who are either off GC or that their reason for coming to this tour was to pick off a stage. And Team Sky has a very strong team, able to control a lot. They're sticking together, so they look so strong that people aren't really going to try and put them under pressure. So a lot of riders know these breakaways are going to go to the finish line. There's a chance to win a stage in Tour de France, and that makes the first hour of racing pretty solid. So some pretty hectic racing out of the start until those guys get away in a break, and then we have 2 races going on. So that's been a bit of the play since Alpe d'Huez. And there'll be a few more of those stages, I think, in the last week. So not a lot left for me to do here. I can help the guys as much as I can to try and pop them into the right breaks, the guys that can actually finish them off, because there's one thing being in a breakaway, but it's another thing actually getting the win. And a lot of these stages have tricky finals with either a mountain before the final or actually a hilltop finish.
There's been a lot of discussion with regards to gruppetto and riders making the time cut. What's your take on the time allowed for riders to complete stages? Is it too hard, too easy? Is it achievable?
Yeah, look, I mean, I think the time cut's there so that people are not dawdling around and not taking an easy day. The Tour de France time cuts are a lot stricter than most other races. I saw a comparison on the internet somewhere of a stage which you could compare with the Alpe d'Huez stage in the Giro, and the time cut would have been about 56 minutes. and the original time cut in the tour was 31, but it was increased to 30 or maybe even 41 and a half minutes. So, and that sounds like a lot of time to lose, but when you're talking about guys that are climbing these climbs at 6 watts per kilo, we really have to ride very hard to make that. So the day for Tuez, I mean, maybe you can look up some of the numbers there because the file I don't have with me, but we're talking normalised powers above, I don't know, 340 or something, or 320 for almost 6 hours. Every climb, I'm close to my limit to make that time cut. It's quite hard. We're also taking, we're railing the descents where we're going quite fast to not lose time. And ideally for us, we want to be on the last climb of the day knowing that we don't have to race the last climb of the day. I mean, all the riders really want to get to the last climb of the day and know that they've got 5 or 6 minutes up their sleeve to be able to just kind of get up the last climb without having to race. The last thing in the world you want to be doing is about 4 or 5 hours into a stage, knowing you have to kind of ride that threshold on the last climb. So we do everything we can during the stage to limit that time so that we've got a bit of a buffer on the last climb and we can kind of get to the finish okay. And it's, this the first 9 days we were all fighting each other and everybody was pushing and shoving and everybody was, and then we get to the third week of the tour and a lot of those guys are now, we're all with a common goal and in some ways all teammates of just trying to get through the stage.
And the big question we spoke about in the previous podcast, the training that we did leading into this Tour de France. How has it all worked for you? Are you going well?
No, mate, I'm creeping. I should have won 3 stages by now, and so I think we're going to have to do something different next year. No, look, we did focus on those first 9 days, and I knew that I'd have to get through the mountains. So yeah, we did a lot of things right. That last altitude camp, I think, helps with the climbing side of things. I've been feeling pretty good. I'm obviously tired now, but who isn't in this bunch? There's only a handful of guys that are still feeling fresh, and no, I think it's worked pretty well. And yeah, I'm pretty happy with the form I have. Definitely those three mountain stages back to back were a big test of anybody, and we saw a lot of guys go home there. So to get through them as I did shows that physically I'm in a good position, and I guess the last week comes down to a lot of mental strength.
That's great, Matt. Thanks for your time and good luck going into the final week. We'll catch up after that.
Good stuff. Well, there's a chat with Matt there. The thing that struck me is kind of the transition from the first week where it's all this mental pressure, mental stress, where everyone's nervous, to now he commented saying he's seeing a lot of familiar faces in the gruppetto and there's a lot of less nervousness in the bunch. As everyone's kind of calmed down, I guess, and found their pecking order.
Yeah, that's one of the big things he spoke about there is just the stress of the first week, and we spoke about the amount of crashes, and he mentioned that almost everyone in the team has hit the deck at some stage now, and that was only up to stage 14, I think, at that time. So obviously a lot of pressure and stress on the riders there. But I guess for me, the big takeaway from Matt's interview was almost the relief that stage 9 is out of the way. He was there purely for that Roubaix stage to get Yates through there safely, and the team did a great job that day. So up until that stage, Matt was, I guess, under a bit of pressure, and when I spoke to him, he was quite stressed about it and anxious about it. But since then, he knows his job's done, and now he's just got to get to Paris. That's the goal now. Yeah,
I mean, it's looking back at that stage 9, the Roubaix stage, it was absolutely carnage, and you can see why teams have specialist riders like Matt and like Luke in the team to chaperone their leaders around. I mean, Matt mentioned a few times he looked back and brought Yates back into the peloton, and you can only imagine without a rider like Matt at her hand how much time would have been lost.
Yeah, and he spoke about he was competitive in that stage and had the chance to ride for himself, but it was never a thought. The main concern was riding for the team and making sure the leader was through safely, whereas some guys were given a free rein and they put on a great show on that stage. But for some guys that are specialists in that area, unfortunately they weren't given the opportunity to race that for a stage victory.
Yeah, absolutely. And also the transition from kind of the flat roads to the mountains. So your body kind of gets into the swing of riding fast or producing lots of torque at a low cadence up the hills. I think you kind of adapt really quickly. And this is something that Adam Blythe, who rides for Aqua Blue, I know you're involved there, Kev, was talking about commentating on one stage of the tour, saying that even within a stage, when you're prepared for, say, like a standard, what looks like a standard bunch sprint day, let's say, and the brake's gone and everyone's settled into riding steady in the mid part of the stage, if a team lights it up at the front in the crosswinds, you've really got to be on the ball and really quick to react. Otherwise, you're going to be caught out and gaps will go. And I think it's a mental switch as well as a physical one. So basically, I think the message is in the tour, you can never relax for fear of crashes, crosswinds. I mean, Greg, you must have been on both sides of the crosswind stages. Giving it out at the front and also being caught out at some point in your career. You couldn't have had a full career without being caught out of one crosswind.
Oh, I've been caught out. Don't you worry about that. Yeah, no. It's and yeah, sometimes you can come off the backside of a mountain into an open valley, and typically the sprinter's going to be on the back anyway because that's just life of a sprinter in the mountains. And then, you're at the back, and then you look up the road, and it's just broken in 4 or 5 pieces, and you're just like, oh, here we go. We've got a massive chase on our hands. But, you form a few mates. A bit of a camaraderie happens in the old gruppetto, and, they're typically strong, fast guys. So with a bit of luck, it will come back together, especially if it's going to be a bunch sprint or something like that. If we've got a common denominator, you'll get teams working together flat stick to try and catch the front again. But if there's another climb coming up, there's okay, we're dropped in the crosswinds, we're probably going to get dropped on the next climb. Let's just make sure we make time cut.
Well, one of the questions that I asked Matt was about the time cut, and we know it's been a bit controversial as how many sprinters have been eliminated from the race so far. And Matt's view was it's harder than other Grand Tours, and that's why it's the hardest race in the world. And we spoke about, off the record before, the three of us earlier today, in terms of the event, you need to train for the demands of the event. And one of the comments that was made leading into the Tour de France was that riders like Sagan, they rode Tour of Switzerland and they did the big climbs, even though they're a sprinter themselves, so that they trained for the demands of the Tour de France. Whereas other sprinters, they went to Tour of California or other smaller races and they had some good sprint training and sprint racing, but they didn't really train for the demands of the Tour de France, perhaps. So it's a hard one to answer, but I guess my view is if you see what the profile of the Tour de France is, and if you're a sprinter, you've got to go to the climb. So part of your training is to learn to climb without affecting your sprint too much, and that's a big part of the training.
Oh, I totally, totally agree with you. I saw only a couple of years ago. Remember, Dumas was like he was lightning fast, and he was winning bunch sprints left, right, and centre, and then come to the first mountain day, and he's still not climbing great, but he's obviously done a lot of work because a couple of years ago he was first eliminated, so he's had a look at the demands of the course. He's done a lot of work on his climbing. So, but in all honesty, the sprinters do a lot of work on the climbing. They have a look at the parkour. They already know what days that are going to be the dangerous days, and I honestly believe it has to be hard. It's the greatest bike race in the world.
Yeah.
But I just feel that one day that they made a mistake. They got it wrong, because I know these riders well. I know they're mentally strong, physically strong. They don't give up. That's just, and for them to rip their own numbers off, and just go, this is ridiculous. I can't ever get close to the time cut. It's just, I think they made a mistake on that day.
Fair point there. Yeah, I mean, it's one of the. I think I kind of agree with all of what you're saying there. I mean, the event is what it is. That's what makes it special. And it was a shame to lose so many top sprinters on that one stage. I think it was stage 12. It is a shame for the race, but is what it is. I mean, you still got some great racing that happened in the rest of the tour. But yes, on the topic of time cuts and how hard the event is, especially for sprinters. I mean, I'm going to open up on this, but I think you guys, Greg and Kev, you'll have something to add for sure. I think it's about the effect of fatigue on sprinters. So Matt mentioned in his interview with you, Kev, that the fatigue that these riders experience in the final week and the back end of the race, especially deep fatigue where boys are just breaking down. The winning a stage of the Tour de France in the first week in a sprint, for example, is very different, I'm saying, to winning a stage in the third week. When you open up in those last 200 meters down the Champs-Élysées on stage 21, the legs have got 3,500 K of racing in them, and the sensations are going to be very different to that of winning a sprint or sprinting in the first stage when the fatigue hasn't really set in. In the first couple of stages, you've got lots of zip in your legs. I think the same concept applies to amateur races, where accepting the notion that riding hard on fresh legs versus riding hard on tired legs is very different. And this comes down to your training, that if you've got a long sportif and want to go well up the last climb or towards the end of your sportif or your race, you've got to replicate that in training. So doing some hard efforts at the end of a long weekend ride, or sticking some similar efforts to your event at the end of a short block, for example. And the best way I would say is to finish off a training ride with a session on Zwift. So go out on the road and then finish on Zwift, hit it up Alpe d'Huez, for example. It's not all about producing fantastic power outputs and feeling really good every session. You need some race or event-specific training and efforts. But yeah, go back to what it opened up on, Greg and Kev. What's your thoughts on the difference, I guess, between a sprint in week 1 versus week 3?
Yeah, it's you're dead right there, mate. It's a huge difference, and you'll notice now coming into their own. You'll get guys like Alexander Kristoff. I mean, obviously Sagan. He can be the best at any time of the tour, but they just don't slow down. That's the thing. Like a pure sprinter, after a week, they're actually quite a lot slower. Their peak power's quite a bit lower. Even their 12-second peak power's lower if you look at their files. So it's definitely this accumulated fatigue, and that's why you were just touching on fatigue resistance training. Like you do your hard work and come back onto Zwift, and then you do some intervals, and you may not hit your peak numbers, you may not hit your perfect power, but it's all building up that fatigue resistance, which will make you better at the end of a bike race.
Yeah, just on that point, one of the sessions that I've given to professional riders is they would go out and do their endurance out on the road, and they would come home and throw the bike onto Zwift and do a race on Zwift just to get that unstructured intensity. And that's something any rider can do. So if you've got some time on the weekend, do an hour or two out on the road and try and time it so you come back, put the bike on the trainer, and then do a race on Zwift, and you get what you said there, Matt, that unstructured intensity at the end of an endurance ride, and it works out perfect. So, and the other point you raised there, Matt, was about finishing a ride with a hard effort. And they've shown an effective way to cause stress on the body and adaptation to occur is at the end of an endurance ride, if you perform either a 30-second full gas effort or a 10-minute threshold effort, you're getting the same kind of physiological effect on the body where you're releasing a huge amount of growth hormones and testosterone. So, we have in our mind that we come home and we cool down. We don't always have to cool down at the end of a ride. So if you're out on a long ride, if you've done your weekend 2 to 4 hour ride, in the last 15 minutes, do a 30-second full gas effort and then roll into your driveway and leave the session at that. And that actually gives you quite a good response.
Yeah, and that's great advice there. And I think certainly something I do with some of the amateur riders that I coach is, it's a great opportunity at the end of a ride when you're fatigued. Get some sprint efforts out, or get some short, sharp efforts out. So again, tying into your 30-second effort, you can give yourself so much benefit, do so much benefit, and give yourself so many positive adaptations by just that 30-second hard effort. I think mentally, that's the biggest hurdle most of the time. I mean, physically, you can always get a 30-second effort out at the end of a ride, and I think anything longer than 30 seconds, it becomes quite mentally tough. Whereas 30 seconds, we can all get our heads down and smash a good 30 seconds out towards the end of our ride.
Yeah. And also with the amount of data we have access to these days, I would recommend that athletes go back and look at their power duration curve, pick out a few different points, look at efforts below 1 minute, and then 1 to 5 minutes, and above 10 minutes, and click on those files and just see at what point did you produce that power. Was it early in a ride or a race, or was it late? And just see where you need to work on your endurance and your ability to produce high power after that.
Yeah, and obviously comparing, if you do similar efforts, so say, let's take your 30-second example, do your 30-second effort at the start of a ride when you're fresh, and do one towards the end of a ride when you're fatigued, and this is going to be a measure of your fatigue resistance. If there's a big drop off, and again, I'm not going to quantify what big is, but if there's a drop off, between the first effort when you're fresh and the effort when you're fatigued, that suggests that your all-round fitness and your fatigue resistance probably needs addressing. So a bit more conditioning maybe could be a benefit.
I actually just learned a little trick in my physiology lab the other day. They were talking about at the end of training, do that hard effort like we talked about, and then everyone's tendency, especially if they're professional athletes, is the recovery is recover, lie down on the couch if you can, and recover this way, legs up, and like it was always the golden rule was legs up and laughing, like recover. But they now reckon if you can actually, because what that does then is it stops all your stress hormones, and as soon as you lie down. So they reckon if you can stay standing for 30 or 40 minutes afterwards, like as in walk around the house, go and do a job, walk down to the shops or something directly after your ride, you actually get a nice boost in your cardiovascular system. And then they actually then went on to move on where say, okay, if this isn't going to happen, this is maybe where compression garments can come in. So if you are lying down, put your compression on, because this then tricks the body that you're not in your horizontal recovery phase, and keeps those stress hormones elevated. So it was a really interesting lab actually, and it's quite relevant to what we're doing.
Yeah, interesting. And speaking about those compression garments, for me, compression socks are for aeroplanes and comfort of your own home.
Not a fashion
I don't know what you guys think.
Don't tell the triathletes that, mate.
Fashion statements, I know, yeah. Never sacrifice style for speed.
Mate, if you can't be the best, you got to look the best. That was always my golden rule.
Good man. Well, cool. I think moving on now, obviously we have a session attached to every podcast. So as we've just come out the Tour de France, I think it's quite fitting to have a session that is based around Alpe de Zwift. So for those of you who are a high enough level, I think it's level 11 to ride on Alpe de Zwift, get up onto the climb. And what we're going to do is a speed play session, which is commonly known as fartlek training. So fartlek translates to speed play in Swedish, and basically means varied or random intervals. So varying your pace throughout a ride. So riding a whole range of intensities from really, really easy through to steady tempo up to flat out on Zwift. So it's a time where it's a session where you spend time in all the different zones really. So yeah, the session is, and it's not going to be a prescribed session in workout mode. It's going to be a session you can carry out in free ride mode. So 21 hairpins on the Alp. And what we're going to do is alternate between hairpins of riding easy. So easy, I'm talking zone 1, zone 2. It's very, very, very comfortable zone. And then riding hard, alternating between hairpins. So basically what I want you to do is ride to the first hairpin, treat that as your warm-up, nice and steady. Then you get to hairpin 1, and from hairpin 1 to hairpin 2, you're doing an effort. And this is it's up to you what exact effort you do, whether you ride tempo, whether you ride threshold, whether you go flat out. But each hairpin then you can alternate. So hairpin 1 to 2, you're making an effort. Hairpin 2 to 3, you're recovering. Hairpin 3 to 4, making another effort. And just make sure you get at least one absolutely flat out hairpin in there, and give it a go. And I think it's just a nice approach to a nice relaxed training session, and you can kind of take it on feel. So if you're feeling really good mentally and physically, get stuck in and smash as many of those hairpins as you can. If you get into the session and you feel a little bit fatigued, and you're not quite on your A game, then just a bit more tempo and sub threshold work is fine.
That's a good
That
effort
sounds
there.
good, mate.
So,
Good session there, Matt.
Yep.
And also,
Yeah.
I'd be interested to see, I think people would do a good time on up to Zwift by riding that method too. They'd be surprised how fast they actually get up there by going hard then going easy, as opposed to doing a full-on time trial. So it'd be good to get some feedback on that one.
that's very interesting, Kev. You mentioned that. So, rider I'm looking after, he set here a new FTP in a race that was made up. The nature of that 20 minutes was, the watts were zone 6, zone 2, all over the place. That really stochastic power profile. And it was amazing that, he achieved the new FTP by riding in that nature. So I think, there's definitely some science behind that. Right then, cycling terminology. Greg, you're up, mate.
My turn, is it? Righto.
Kev, you got the clock going?
Yep.
You got the clock ready,
Ready
Kev?
to go.
Good stuff. All right then, Greg, your term, you've got 30 seconds to explain. The term is on the rivet.
Okay, on the rivet, aka on the pointy end, looking like a bulldog chewing a wasp. It's basically comes from an old school saddle that was the leather was actually riveted to the base of the saddle. So it means you're on the tip of the saddle. You're going as hard as you can. But a really, really important note for this terminology is it's usually due to someone else putting the hammer down. You're not actually inflicting the pain is being inflicted upon you. So you're on the rivet either in a crosswind or you're on the rivet going up a
And
hill.
that's time there, Greg.
Good work.
I think I got
description,
most
mate.
of it out there.
Yeah, that's a very good
I
description.
didn't know about the
Nice-
actual
nice
rivet
little
on
bit
the
of-
saddle.
Yeah, a bit of history in there as well.
You are that old,
Oh.
aren't you?
I am an old bugger.
Good stuff. All right, quick fire question then, chaps. So, for debate is, or it's not really a debate, it's quick fire, so by definition it's a quick response. High socks or ankle socks?
Definitely high socks for me.
I'm going to agree with you. High socks.
Yeah, I'm high socks too. Those ankle socks just don't quite do it for me. But as a follow-on, so we're kind of violently agreeing there, high socks is the way to go. Socks under your leg warmers or over the top?
Oh, please don't say over. Have some class.
I'm not right, Matt. I'm not riding with you if you put your socks over your leg warmers. I'm sorry, mate.
No, I'm under. I think it's. I remember as a kid, I think it's kind of cool or fashionable, certainly in the UK, for at around 15 or 16 to maybe 10 years ago. I did spend probably 2 years with my socks over the top of my leg warmers. I look back at photos now and cringe a little bit. So, but I'm safely under leg warmers.
Oh, well, we can all ride together then. We can all ride together.
we can still be friends. That's good. Lovely. All right, guys. Q&A. So, as ever, thank you for those people who have sent a question in. If there's anything you wanna know, you can tweet us. And send your question in. We'll do our best to answer all that we can. So we've got 4 questions that we're going to go through today. So the first question, it's quite a long question, but I'll read it all out. It's from Kareen Torfik, which was received via Twitter. So Kareen's written, whilst I didn't ask the question on imbalance in power output that you guys covered in previous podcasts between legs, I suffer from an imbalance between my 2 legs due to, I think, a motorcycle accident years ago, which resulted in significant muscle and nerve damage in my left leg. At FTP, the imbalance is around 70 to 30%. So 70% strong leg, 30% powers come from his left leg, which has improved slightly over recent years due to focusing on pedaling technique and single leg exercises. So now sprinting is my major weakness and I can't produce the absolute top end max power. Any tips to improve specifically my sprinting?
This is a good question, and it's quite a common question these days. Now that we have the ability to record left and right power production, it's something that everyone's becoming aware of. But the key point here is that it's normal to have an imbalance to some degree when you're pedaling. Generally about 20% is acceptable. Obviously in Kareem's case, 70-30 is significant, so it needs some work. What I would suggest here, Kareem's mentioned that the imbalance is 70-30 at threshold. I would suggest that if you perform a ramp test and then go back to your file and take a note of the imbalance throughout the ramp test. So the ramp test starts very easy. For example, you might start at 150 watts and then every minute it increases by 20 watts until exhaustion. So it is actually the maximal aerobic power test that we've spoken about before, and it's quite a common test now. But that will then give you some data throughout the full power range aerobically of the imbalance there, and then you can identify, I guess, the most significant range in imbalance, and also where it is at its smallest as well. And then from that, obviously, there's going to be some work to be done in the gym. So the focus here is on strength work, and obviously the ideal strength work is single leg strength work. So exercises including leg press, lunges, calf raises, anything that you can do in a single leg exercise. But the key here is to always do the weak leg first and count how many reps you do with that weak leg. And then when you go to the stronger leg, do the same amount of reps for the strong leg as well. So you're doing the same amount of work with both legs, but doing the weak leg first. And the other way that you could work on this imbalance is if you have access to a bike that gives real-time feedback on left-right leg torque, you can actually do some efforts and focus on pedaling technique and get some real-time feedback, which would be quite handy as well.
All good stuff there. And I've got a view on this that's worked quite well with a few riders I've got with an imbalance in between left and right leg, not to the quite extreme that Kareem is experiencing. But you mentioned there, Kev, about doing the efforts with your weakest leg first. Hear me out on this one. So again, going back to your identifying where your main weakness is on your power profile. Say it's, for argument's sake, around 3 minutes. Let's do a 3-minute capacity effort. So that is a 3-minute all-out effort, one-legged, using your strongest leg first, and then record the power you can produce with that one leg for 3 minutes. And then with your weaker leg, I'm saying ride at your 3-minute capacity power for as long as possible. And when you start to fade, stop. So this may only be possible for 30 seconds because it is your weaker leg. Take a short rest and then go again. And the aim is to complete a total of 3 minutes of work at that same power. So the theory being then you place equal requests on each leg, which over time will help balance out the power in each leg. And I think the key is to be patient with it, because this isn't going to change overnight. What's the take on that, guys?
Yeah, that's a good on the bike session that you've described there, and I guess you've given yourself a baseline as to what your body's capable of, so you've got something to work towards. My reference was to obviously the strength work in the gym and the best way to build strength using weights. So that was my take on it there.
Good.
Yeah, and I've seen a lot of athletes with coming back from injuries smash their kneecaps, when they've had some road furniture in a race, and 6, 7, 8 weeks off the bike, and they have massive muscle imbalances, and that's exactly what we used to bring them back to. We'd do single-legged leg press was the one that was really key, and that would gain the strength back nicely. The other thing we did was a lot of that single-legged exercise work, on the stationary bike. And again, you exercise, you can really, really load the leg up, because what's actually happening is your one leg's still and your other leg is, it's basically asking for all the blood to go to that leg, so you can actually overproduce power. So you can just accumulate huge amounts of lactic acid, which then, obviously is breaking down the muscle structures. And then with the correct recovery, that's how you rebuild a stronger muscle. You break it down and you build it back up. So it's a combination of those things, and it's due diligence. You cannot rush it. It's and you have to do it incrementally. You almost have to be, like a drill sergeant with it. Just a little bit more each time, and you will see some nice gains.
Yeah. So at the start of that, Greg, you mentioned about bust up kneecaps and stuff. What about Philippe Gilbert's kneecap? He fractured his kneecap, I think, and again, I've seen a photo on Twitter where it's just exploded like a balloon. What a hard chap.
I don't understand how he could ride any further with a broken kneecap, because there's so much strain,
Nails.
Your quads are attached through there, and I mean, there's so many tendons going through. That's just incredible.
Adrenaline.
Yeah. I think you bang on there, because again, once he got off the podium, he could barely walk down the stairs. So obviously that adrenaline worn off and realization was kicking in. But yeah, what an absolute warrior. But yeah, just to kind of wrap up on the response for Kareem, he says he wants to try and increase his peak power, and that's where his weakness is, to develop his sprint. I think it's just a point to note is it's not all about your absolute peak power that you can hit for a split second to be, to improve your sprint. To be good at sprinting, a sprint is typically 10, 15 odd seconds. So it's about being good for the duration of that sprint. And also obviously the run up to the sprint. So unless you're a track sprinter, you need to be good for the distance before. So obviously there's other factors that go into being good at sprinting other than just hitting that absolute peak power for a split second on the rig. So yeah, there you go, Kareem. Hopefully that gives you some food for thought. Next question is from Caleb Kramer, which was actually received via the Zwift forum. And Caleb's saying, "Hi, I'm looking for a good program for a beginner, 180 FTP cyclist. Cycling is actually my second sport, secondary to my triathlon routine, so I only do it twice a week. All the programs I see on Zwift are 4 or 5 days a week. Are there any programs that are suggested one-off rides that will help me progress my overall power? Thanks."
Well, this is where the Zwift flexible training programs really come into play here for someone like Caleb, where each session has a priority attached to it. So, for example, the more high-intense sessions would be high-priority sessions, and the endurance or recovery sessions would obviously be secondary. So, for a triathlete looking for training programs, they can really identify 1 or 2 key sessions from a full week's training program and implement just those key sessions.
Yeah, I think that's the one thing I was going to look at with this. It's okay, we've got 180 FTP, but the one thing we're missing there is, yes, we can ride twice a week, but what's the volume we're doing? How much time can you actually apply to this twice a week? Is it is it 1 hour, or is it 4 hours or 5 hours? Because twice a week, 5-hour endurance rides, it's sub threshold. Some sweet spots, some maybe some over under stuff. That's definitely going to give you a nice boost in your FTP and your overall power. But it just all depends. Again, I think the one thing we're missing there, the one sort of metric we're missing, is what sort of volume can you do in those 2 days.
There we go. Great points. There you go, Caleb. Hope that helps. Next question is from Karina Aluzo, which was sent via Twitter. So thank you, Karina. So Karina's saying, with a lot of sessions in Zwift, I get a little frustrated at how easy they are. I admit I'm a bit of a workaholic and I like to ruin myself every session. Surely working a bit harder than the session is demanding of me will help me improve faster. Well, Karina, you obviously like riding hard, like hurting yourself. But just to open up on this, the sessions in Zwift are designed with a specific purpose in mind. They're not all designed to deplete you every single session, and they're not all designed to be ridden flat out, so you're working in your zones 5 and zone 6. There's science and methods behind these sessions to help develop certain attributes. Hence why if you're doing an FTP builder session, there may be sessions sub-threshold that may frustrate you how easy they are. But they're designed to be that way, to kind of develop different attributes other than your top end capacity and your sprinting and the like. So it depends what you want to achieve, really. If you just want a hard workout where you're going to finish the session feeling really depleted, then a bit of a fartlek session like I spoke about earlier in the session in the podcast, or maybe some form of HIIT training may be best. But there's a lot of science that goes into these sessions, and they're structured as they are for a reason.
And this is quite almost a common problem on Zwift, because we associate indoor riding with high intensity, And if we're riding indoors more than 3 times a week, then we're going to be completing 3 or more high-intensity sessions. And we know that's detrimental to improving performance, because we need that recovery to actually improve. And this is where, and you mentioned there, Matt, there's a lot of science behind each session. So if you're just randomly picking out workouts throughout the week and completing them, there's no real structure to that. But if you are doing the majority of your training on Zwift, this is where the training plans are quite good, because they have the targeted rest in there, they have the adequate amount of intensity and related rest as well. So if you are riding regularly on Zwift, training that way, again, go back to the programs and you're going to get that right amount of rest and high intensity as well. And enjoy the easy days. That's the key part. And they're the days where you're going to get the improvement as well.
Yeah, but Kev, let's be honest. Have you ever had an easy session on Zwift, mate? Come on, let's be honest.
Yeah, it's that mental side, isn't it? Like, you think you're indoors, you need to be hurting and training hard. So once you get past that, it opens up a whole different world of training indoors.
But there are little tricks you can do to, if you do want to make them a little bit harder, like things I used to do when I was professional. I'd do a preload, so I would head out maybe on the road beforehand for 2 hours, so I do have some accumulated fatigue, and then go and do my structured workout, because like Matt touched on, each session is designed to hit that certain zone, that certain intensity. There's a reason behind that load that you're putting in. Or the other thing we used to do was maybe do it without a fan, so that there's a lot of sweat rate where you get and then doing this for a long time will increase your blood plasma, your blood volume, so that actually gives you a boost in performance also. So there are little tricks you can use to make the session a little bit harder. You get a lot of cardiac drift with dehydration in a warmer room, so it's the sessions are designed, you don't have to go flat stick every time, but there are little tricks you can do to make them just that little bit harder.
Yeah, and I would actually bet, Karina, based on, I'd say 9 out of 10 amateur cyclists that the training, when I look at their training, I look back and what they've been doing historically, 9 out of 10 don't actually train hard very often. What they do is basically go out and train quite hard every time, but that quite hard effort becomes their perception is they are smashing it and they're training really hard, but actually they're just riding quite hard all the time, and they never really train flat out. They never really go easy. Everything's kind of steady state, and surprise, surprise, riders get quite good at riding steady state. They have no turn of speed. They're fairly kind of dead legs in terms of they haven't really got any. They never really feel fresh, never really feel good. Every session is just kind of in that sluggish zone, and you basically reach a plateau where you don't kick on, don't improve anymore. So again, coming back to giving yourself some easy days and then really cracking on other days. That structured approach that the training plans in Zwift give you, you won't go wrong. So stick to the guidance in Zwift. And I'm sure you'll be a better bike rider for it. Our fourth and final question from Matt Davis, which was sent via Twitter, is pink, yellow, or red #Grand Tours. I presume it's. I think we know what it's talking about. Which Grand Tour is the most prestigious to win the Giro, the Tour de France, or the Vuelta? So I'm going to kick off and say the Tour de France, just purely because of the history behind it. And close to my heart. I mean, it's an event where, my brothers performed very, very well in over the years, and I went out to watch it as a kid. And it's just to me the best sporting event in the world. So yellow for me.
I'm interested in Greg's response to this one. I'm going to wait for that.
I mean, they're just so prestigious, all of them, aren't they? I'm going to go with the red jersey in the Volta a España, just because I've got a special affinity to Spain, and I won my first Grand Tour stage in the Volta a España, so I think the red.
Nice one.
Yeah, I guess as a fan of the sport, I'm going to go with yellow, but I totally understand the attraction of the red jersey, and just sometimes it is almost more spectacular racing, the Vuelta, just in the profile they provide the riders and the spectators. It does lend to some very interesting racing.
Yeah, and again, without neglecting the Giro, I mean, looking at the Giro this year, the whole race got turned on its head in the last few days. So again, fantastic race in there. I mean, they've all got their pros, and obviously all fantastic events for the sport. So, but yeah, few good answers there.
Oh, it's absolutely. I think, and personally speaking, I would say the Giro parcours-wise, as in like the actual circuit, I think would be harder than the Tour de France, but because of the level of riders, everyone has peaked, like they're at the top of their game for the Tour de France. It becomes a harder race. There's more stress. There's more spectators. There's more crashes. So I think just the culmination of all those little things, that's what makes the Tour de France the hardest race in the world. But I think parcours-wise, I think the Giro would have to be the hardest one to ride.
There we go. Well, good to chat, gentlemen. And that wraps up Coaching Podcast number 13. Speak to you soon. Hope you enjoyed.
Very good, mate.
Thanks, guys.
Loved it. See you next time.